Who is the most overrated player on every NFL team? These are the players who don't deserve the praise that they're getting from the media and fans. Players that are more name value and hype than actual on-field production. Before I give you the most overrated player on every NFL team, spike the like button and help the channel grow by subscribing to the Bottom Line View for more NFL videos just like this. Let me know in the comment section below who you believe is the most overrated player on your favorite team. The way I see it, the worse the team, typically the harder it is to pick an overrated player. Because when your team doesn't win, you hardly are rated in the first place. Let's kick it off with the Arizona Cardinals star corner Patrick Peterson. It's simple, he's no longer elite. Shutdown corner? No longer. Last season, I would argue it was his worst season of his NFL career, ranking 45th by PFF with the 58th coverage grade in football. In just 10 games, he allowed the same amount of touchdowns as 2018, 13 more completions, and 204 more yards than a season ago. The Atlanta Falcons' most overrated player is Takk McKinley. He's just not a quality #1 edge player. His expertise is actually pass rushing, but they signed Dante Fowler to be their #1 pass rusher because McKinley wasn't getting it done. And I just don't see him as the complete player that Atlanta truly needs him to be entering year number 4. The Baltimore Ravens' likely Hall of Fame safety, Earl Thomas, he's no longer elite at the safety position. He wasn't the same in terms of an open field tackler in 2020. He wasn't the same athletically. He used to fly around the field like a missile. And I just no longer see that quality that made him a special Hall of Fame player. The Buffalo Bills' most overrated player is last season's first-round pick, Ed Oliver. The Aaron Donald comparisons may have been a bit strong. He got in some trouble off the field this offseason, which isn't a good look going into year number 2 after not a great year number 1. He was a top 10 pick, and those type of guys are expected to play a large role from day 1. And Ed Oliver's role actually decreased as the season went on, as his snap percentage went down game by game throughout the 2019 season. He also put up 2 of his 5 sacks versus the worst offensive line in football, the Miami Dolphins. The Carolina Panthers' new quarterback, Teddy Bridgewater, is their most overrated player. The Panthers are a roster made up of a lot of young players, so this was actually a very difficult decision to determine who is overrated. But I have to give it to Teddy B, because Teddy B is a beloved player. He's an awesome guy off the field. He's a great human being, but that simply does not make you a great football player. Look, all quarterbacks have been great with Sean Payton. I mean, even Luke McCown was great with Sean Payton. Dink and dunk central is Teddy Bridgewater. He's never thrown over 14 touchdowns in a season, and now he's expected to be the franchise guy for the Carolina Panthers. He physically doesn't wow me. I just am not buying Teddy B. The Chicago Bears' most overrated player is their supposed Pro Bowl cornerback, Kyle Fuller. Fuller allowed 71% completion into his coverage in 2019, along with 5 touchdowns and over a 100 passer rating for nearly 1,000 yards, 942. He also was terrible tackling, missing 13% of his tackle attempts. He was much, much better last season in 2018. The type of corner that Fuller is makes him overrated. He's a big-time playmaker, but in order to take the football away, you need to be very risky. The Cincinnati Bengals' most overrated player is Billy Price. Price carries the first-round pick tag, so fans assume that when you're picked in the first round, especially when you're an offensive lineman, and people don't watch offensive line play, they assume you're great, especially in a place like Cincinnati, where again, we don't get to watch this team often. He ranked 82nd in 2019 by PFF, and has continued a rough start to his career. The Cleveland Browns' most overrated player, in my opinion, has been overrated since he was drafted, and that is their quarterback, Baker Mayfield. He was never the best quarterback in that draft class, nor was he the most physically talented. 22 touchdowns and 21 interceptions with Odell Beckham Jr., Jarvis Landry, and one of the best running games in football. I don't care what your offensive line is. You need to perform better as a number 1 pick in the draft. I think Baker will have a better season in 2020, but last season has casted serious doubts on whether or not he can actually be a true franchise quarterback. The Dallas Cowboys' most overrated player is Leighton Vander Esch. Vander Esch looks like a linebacker. He looks like the prototype you want at the position, and he had an amazing rookie season as a top 5 linebacker in 2018. But he slipped massively in 2019. Ranking 50th at the position. It was a sophomore slump. You expect better going forward, but one area that Vander Esch needs to clean up is run defense. Far too often he over pursues, he gets fooled, or even pushed around. The Denver Broncos' most overrated player is their newly signed running back, Melvin Gordon. He was the second best running back on the Chargers last season. Austin Eckler was better, and I think he could be that as well on the Broncos behind Phillip Lindsay, despite Gordon having the tag of a high first-round pick in comparison to guys like Lindsay and Eckler. The biggest example I can give for Gordon being overrated is his lack of interest from teams last season when he held out. Nobody wanted to trade for him. Nobody was willing to give up any capital for this supposed great running back. 4 times under 4 yards per carry. He is well-rounded, I'll give him that. He can catch the football, but he's nowhere close to deserving of a top 10 nod at the position. The Detroit Lions' most overrated player is Kerryon Johnson. He's had so much hype, me included, especially from the fantasy football community. I really think that Kerryon has some talent, but the best ability in football is availability, and Kerryon doesn't have that ability. Picking a running back in the 2nd round is a statement from a franchise, and the Lions decided to do that with DeAndre Swift this offseason. The Lions were able to make do without Kerryon last year. Scarborough did just fine until he proves that he can stay healthy, until he proves that he can perform when healthy. Kerryon is overrated. The Packers' most overrated player is Marquise Valdes-Scantling. This was the most hype of any Packer receiver outside of Devontae Adams in fantasy drafts last year. And I would argue he was outplayed by not just 1, not just 2, but arguably 3 other receivers on this depth chart. He is a one-trick pony player. He goes deep or nothing. He has the physical tools to be a very good player, but he lacks the details to be a legit receiver. The Houston Texans' most overrated player is Whitney Mercilus. This is a case of being a really good player declining into an average player at your position. He was great. He has an awesome, memorable name that everybody knows him for, Mercilus. He's also feasted most of his career as the number 2 or number 3 pass rusher on his defense. Mercilus has been overrated. The Indianapolis Colts' most overrated player is running back Marlon Mack. There are a lot of running backs that I think in football could have ran for 1,000 yards behind the Colts offensive line. And yes, Marlon Mack was able to achieve great rushing statistics, but he's a very one-dimensional back, and in 2020, you need to be able to do more than just run the rock. The reason they drafted a running back in the 2nd round is because from the rushing department, he didn't take advantage of everything that there was to be had. Physically, the Rook is way superior to Marlon Mack. He's overrated. The Jacksonville Jags' most overrated player, another running back, Leonard Fournette. And Fournette, I really love to watch, but Truth be told, he's just not a very efficient player. He's a retro back who maybe in the 70s or 80s would have been Earl Campbell. But today, he's just another guy. And that's the sad truth of modern football. And considering the draft status that he holds, he's overrated. The Kansas City Chiefs' most overrated player? What do you know? It's another running back. Damian Williams is the Chiefs' most overrated player. And the reason being is because there are so many running backs who could perform in this offense and that have performed in this Andy Reid offense and have been elevated by Andy Reid. Yes, he was a Super Bowl hero. He played fantastic. He played over his head. The Chiefs drafted a running back in the first round for a reason. It's not because Damian Williams is some irreplaceable talent. He certainly is not. I think what they want is a running back that's better in the passing game, and Damian has been disappointing in that regard the last 2 seasons. They were trying to replace him all year with broken down LaShawn McCoy. They just weren't able to. He didn't even put up 500 rushing yards last regular season. Williams is overrated. The Los Angeles Chargers' most overrated player is one of the Pouncey brothers. When you play on the offensive line and everyone knows your name, there's not a lot of players like that, you're probably overrated. Everybody knows who the Pouncey brothers are. And Mike Pouncey, he played just 5 games in 2019. He's been maybe a bit above average, but he's certainly not one of the best centers in football. The Los Angeles Rams' most overrated player is tackle Rob Havenstein. He was ranked 75th at the tackle position in 2019 after having his best season as a pro in 2018. If you have to take a look and see what was the biggest reason why the Rams' offensive line was worse in 2019, it was the horrendous play by their right tackle. The Las Vegas Raiders' most overrated player is their 4th overall pick from a year ago, Clelin Ferrell. You could argue that Ferrell was the 4th best edge player on his own team, or at least is right now. He ranked 76th last season, only putting up 4.5 sacks. That's simply not good enough for a top 5 pick. The Minnesota Vikings' most overrated player is linebacker Anthony Barr. He's a physical freak, but his production doesn't match the measurables or the potential. 73% completion, 101 passer rating and coverage, that's not good enough. Ranking 56th in football at the position in 2019, Barr does not live up to that contract. The New England Patriots' most overrated player is running back Sony Michel. Michel, remember, was drafted in the 1st round. And simply, I don't see the 1st round talent thus far from Sony Michel. He had an awesome 2018 playoff run, but the number one thing I look for in running backs is what can you do when there's nothing there? And Sony doesn't make enough people miss. I don't see the elusiveness. I don't see the acceleration that was advertised coming out of college. That could be due to wear and tear, could be due to injuries. I just haven't seen any special running back quality from Sony Michel. Not to mention, he has been basically useless as a pass catcher. The New Orleans Saints' most overrated player is cornerback Janoris Jenkins. The way that Saints fans hype up the Jackrabbit, it's like he's in his prime. By the way, part of the reason he's overrated is because he has such a cool nickname. If this guy didn't have the Jackrabbit as his nickname, he'd probably just be another average corner in a lot of people's minds, but that's simply not the case. I'm really skeptical that he's the answer as the Saints' number 2 corner. His speed is a big weakness, which leaves him very susceptible in man-to-man coverage, and that makes you limited at the corner position, therefore you're overrated. The New York Jets' most overrated player is Sam Darnold. I've never seen a quarterback hyped more for literally doing nothing. It must be a West Coast thing. I really don't understand it. Every excuse in the book is used for Sam Darnold. There are some quarterbacks who would be absolutely torched by the media if they performed the way that he did in a lot of games. like the Seeing Ghosts game, for example, I'll give him the credit of having a winning record in 2019, but his numbers, 3,000 yards, 19 touchdowns, 13 picks in 13 games, and what I just don't see with my two eyes. It doesn't suggest that he is one of the best young quarterbacks that a lot of people say he is in the sport right now. The Philadelphia Eagles' most overrated player is wide receiver Alshon Jeffrey. I don't know what says overrated more than reports that you may be cut, straight up. He's too slow, which leads to a lack of separation on his routes. He's been beaten up with a lot of injuries, and when he's on the field, he's just not the same guy. The Pittsburgh Steelers' most overrated player is wide receiver Juju Smith-Schuster. Juju has become a bigger star with the things that he has done outside of football than what he has actually done on the field. Patriots cornerback J.C. Jackson rolled his eyes at the mention of Juju as a top receiver in the NFL, and this was before week 1 of the 2019 season. JC was actually proven right. With or without Big Ben, Juju struggled to live up to his reputation. 42 receptions, 552 yards, and 3 touchdowns. His numbers will likely be better in 2020 because the quarterback is back. I just don't see the route running skills, the speed, the quickness that you typically see in an elite receiver. The San Francisco 49ers' most overrated player is Jimmy Garoppolo. He's the first person that came to my mind, but honestly, I don't know if Jimmy is actually rated highly. The 49ers don't have a lot of overrated players, but there might have been a bit too much hype for Jimmy coming in, which might have been unfairly placed by a lot of people because he came from New England, so high expectations. He is a quarterback on a very good team who just reached the Super Bowl. And as a football society, we typically do give the quarterback way too much credit, which I think is the case for Jimmy G. I think a lot of quarterbacks in his situation would have been able to get to the Super Bowl. The Seattle Seahawks' most overrated player is interior defensive lineman Jarran Reed. Reed came out of nowhere in 2018 with 10 sacks, which put him on the map. But he crashed all the way back down to earth in 2019 with just 2 sacks, ranking 80th among interior defensive linemen in 2019. He was the 3rd or maybe even 4th best player in the interior rotation for just the Seahawks last year. The Tennessee Titans' most overrated player, which it hurts me to say this, but it's Malcolm Butler. And the most evidence I can give you is the fact that the Titans' pass defense actually got better when Butler got hurt. He has not performed to the contract that he was given in Tennessee, and his play has clearly fallen off since leaving the Patriots, allowing a 91 passer rating in 2019. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers' most overrated player is tight end O.J. Howard. When Tom Brady signed with the Bucs, many of us fell into the trap of saying he goes to a team with a lot of weapons. He goes to a team with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and O.J. Howard, as if O.J. Howard is actually on their level. And so far, that just hasn't been the case. I like the idea of O.J. Howard. I think he has a lot of physical talent, but the production for O.J. just hasn't matched the measurables. It hasn't matched the hype. It hasn't matched the thought of what he is on the field. He likely does get better this year with TB12 in town, but let's just wait for him to perform before we actually place him on that level. The Washington Redskins' most overrated player is Landon Collins. He ranked 38th among all safeties last year by PFF, 62nd in coverage grade, allowed 5 touchdowns and a 114 passer rating into his coverage. He's excellent at stopping the run, don't get me wrong, but that position is slowly dying in football right now. He needs to be better in coverage. Those are the most overrated players in the NFL, the most overrated player for every NFL team right now in 2020. If you enjoyed, Gronk, spike the like button, subscribe to the channel for more. It's Mitch. Comment below your opinion. Who is the most overrated player on your favorite team? Peace.